Hello, Enrico speaking here. I hope everything is fine. Today, I'm going to show you some Google Colab that could be useful for you to speed up the process. Because, as you may know, a data analyst spends a huge part of the week on the same slow manual task, exporting numbers, stitching tools together, hunting for what went wrong. Today, I'll show you 5 short notable notebooks on Google Colab that hand those tasks to code and at the end to AI. Everything you see around lives in Google Colab with sample data built in, no setup, no login, and everything is shared in the link below in the description. And you could be feel free to edit or do whatever you want with this type of code. So let's start share my screen. One sec. The data analyst. So again, it's something that could be useful, and then we can do it for everything we are going to define here. So this is the 5 notebooks that we're going to use today. The first one is a mix of GA4 and Clarity in order to understand the friction map. The goal is to generate CRO priorities. The second one is to create custom funnel and drop-off using segments that could be done without using GA4 360. The third one is related to the anomaly detection, so we can catch conversion drop automatically. Then we got the attribution compare, last click versus data-driven versus Markov chain. And the last one is AI insight plus segmentation. So using the key means plus a cloud written report if you have a cloud key that you can use for your reporting. The first thing is GA4 for Clarity Friction Map. The problem is that GA4 tells you where people go, but not why they struggle. Clarity captures the struggle, rage click, dead clicks, and how far people scroll, for example, but in a separate tool. So we know that there is the integration between Google Ads, GA4, blah, blah, blah. But we want, for example, to get a cross-referencing in order to avoid nightmares combining them together. So these notebooks merge the two automatically and tells you which page to fix first. So first of all, and then as you can see here, we got the first dummy data. This is something that we create for you. You can use GA4 data, obviously. You can find everything again inside all the information, all the link in the description. And then here, what we got, for example, the GA4 side. So we got pages, session conversion, and conversion rate. And then here, as you can see here, we got, for example, information related to clarity side, like rage clicks, dead clicks, average scroll depth, clickbacks rate, and so on. If you see here, for example, we got all this type of data coming from GA4, all the data coming from Clarity, and then we can manipulate this data in order to fix them together. So before doing that, remember that with Clarity, you can automate only 3 days of data extraction with an endpoint and the secret key. So I think the best way is to create a repository where you can find everything, and then you can manage this type of data. So if we go further, here we got we got everything that is placed together. So for example, we got the information related to the page path, the number of session, conversion rate, and then the friction score and the priority that made, for example, from the information related to rate click, that clicks, and quick back. This is the script where the magic happens. So the notebooks combines those 4 frustration signals into a single friction score between 0 and 1. And then, as you may know, higher means more painful. Then it multiply friction by traffic to get a priority number, because a broken page seen by 50 people doesn't matter. A Madeline annoying page seen by 80,000 people absolutely does. So after that, if you don't want to use, for example, this type of page, we can use this plot type where we can generate a correlation between the friction score, then the sessions, and then let me say a heat map, where you can see, for example, the priority and then the number of session, the friction score, conversion rate, and so on. So in this case, the scatter plot is the same story of the table, but set it in one picture. You can use it in order to understand where is the main thing to set in this moment or to fix. Or if you want, if there is any type of information that you can, for example, select later in order to set up everything in place. So with only 4 type of comments, we in Google Colab, we got all this type of information, combine it together, and then we can define everything in one place. And then another thing, for example, is the custom funnel and drop off. So in this case, GA4 makes a proper step-by-step funnel painful unless you got a 360 version in order to get the raw data. Why you get information only that, for example, if you bring lot of data that is setting, for example, in 1/2 or a quarter or in a year, you got heavy sample data. So what we did here is only a managing of the funnel. For example, here again, our data. This is everything that is related to dummy data. Again, you can use the GA4 data if you want. You find everything in the Google Colab, in the Python script that I will link in the description. And then we just, for example, create all the information like device category, desktop, mobile, and so on. Here you got an example. And then we got the event name, session start, the number of event counting, view items, blah, 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 etc., etc. And after that, for example, we just ask our Google Colab to split all this information into a separate funnel. So you don't need to set a funnel in one exploration. You just bring all the information from the event count, and then you generate the funnel, which all the event you are going to define here, for example, and then you can plot it and you got everything in place here. So you got the information of the view items, and then you got the information for the initial path, the previous one, percent of total. And this is very useful in order to understand where you lose people and where you can retrieve and how to make people come back to your funnel. And after that, for example, if you want, you can just use device category in order to split all this information into, for example, desktop, mobile, and obviously tablet. And then here you got a, let me say, linear funnel that you can see where is the most painful case that you can find into your funnel. But I think that the segmentation is something that you can manage later. The main thing is that you can create your own funnel and get information between the percent from the initial step, the previous completion rate, and the percent of the total. This is something that could be very useful for you in order to understand how and where people are leaving your funnel. And after that, what we got is the anomaly detection. We know that there is anomaly detection into GA4, into the session, exploration session, and in the trend line that you can set the anomaly detection. But for example, we can, for example, get this type of information daily into this Google Colab, and then we can create a flag that's where when something is not on the average or is not normal. And how we can do that? We can, for example, after all the information that we use into Google Colab, we can, for example, set a script that send information to Slack or Teams or whatever you want. So what we do is just to go to here, create again all our dummy data, and then we got all this information, that is the session, conversion rate, and then we ask, for example, if there is any type of anomalies using the zeta score, and then we try to plot it, and where you can see the X, we got the anomaly detection. That is something that could be useful for us to understand what happens and how we can dig more on that data on that day. And as I can define before, we got here the information related to how we can send, for example, after that, the information like we got a spike, we got a decrease, we got a drop or something like that, and then send to Slack or other stuff like that. Other thing that we can use is comparing modeling, attribution modeling like last click, linear, and Markov. Obviously, you can define whatever you want, last click, Markov, or linear, or if you want first click, whatever it could be. And here, for example, you got all this information again. We just did the dummy data. We got the information, the pathing, like referral and email, then organic, one conversion, social email, organic, everything more or less like assisted conversion that we got in the universal analytics. And then we ask to transform this in the last click and the linear. After that, we create Markov chain in order to understand if there is any type of difference between direct, last click, linear, and Markov, and then we plot it. And here you can compare whatever you want, your attribution model or whatever you want to compare here. And it's very useful in order to understand if the data-driven model or linear or Markov is more or less useful for your attribution, for your business, and so on. And then the last one is the AI Insight plus segmentation. So what we are going to define here is to try to create, for example, segment that could be high value, churn, engage, with no buy, new, casual, blah, blah, blah. And then we got another script. If you got the Claude, the Claude API key, you can, for example, create and ask Claude to create a report and then create, for example, storytelling or something like that. So usually we saved 1 or 2 days creating, for example, and discovering information related to segments, creating report, and so on. As mentioned before, we got, for example, all our data, the dummy data, sessions, average session seconds, page per session, daily since last visit, purchases, blah, blah, blah. Here, Anthropic API key, if you got set it here, and then we got all this information that we want. So for example, the count of the session, mean, standard deviation, minimum, percentage, max, and so on. And then here we got the creation of the segment, like the new one is the people that got this type of sessions, the average duration, blah, blah, blah. And then here, as you can see, we can create all this type of information and combination of each type of behavioral segment based on segment 1, segment 0, segment 3, and so on. So this is very useful for you to create segmentation, ask, for example, for more digging into your GA4 and so on. And then here, as you can see here, we got a topic epi key. If everything is fine, you can just click on play and then just generate the reporting and other stuff that could be useful for you to understand what happens inside the website. And why this is win? So again, we got synthetic data that runs live. We just defined the real pinpoints, and we got for certain type of information the haha moment that could be useful for you to save, for example, 1 or 2 hour or day in a week in order to create other analysis and so on. So hope this help you in some way, and let me know in the comment if you would like to use the script, if you want to modify it, and if you want any other type of video like this. See ya.